Hey folks, welcome back, or of course, welcome to Lone Pine Tarot for the first time if you're brand new here. And as I always say, thank you so much for joining me for our Pick a Card reading today on one of my absolute favorite topics to discuss with tarot. And of course, you can tell by the title you clicked on, that is all about life purpose. Now, I'm personally of the belief that we have more than one life purpose, but today we are specifically asking your higher self what life purpose is most relevant for you to learn about right now, because I not only want this reading to help provide perspective on you at a soul level and in general on a spiritual level, but also give you something that is maybe helpful to what you're going through right now in your life. So that is the focus we are using with our reading today. So let's choose our pile leaders to start the reading off with. So calling on higher self for our community, please guide us to the right cards to choose the piles with. Thank you. Okay, that one is calling. So there is pile number 1, pile number 2, and pile number 3. Let's unveil them together. So for pile number 1 over here on the left, your pile leader today is, and forgive me if I butcher the pronunciation, Melusine. Almost looks like a mermaid type being. So Melusine. Pile number 2, your pile leader today is, we have one of the animal cards, the hawk. And last but not least, for our wonderful pile number 3 over here on the right, your pile leader is, once again, more of a supernatural being, the Will-o-the-Wisp. Beautiful spread today for each pile. So quick refresher, pile 1, Melusine, pile 2, hawk, pile 3, Will-o-the-Wisp. But as I always say, you're perfectly welcome to pause on this part of the reading if you need more time to decide. If you're new to Pick a Card readings and you're not sure, well, what method to use, or you like to follow along with our typical, what I call meditative moment, please follow along right now. So close your eyes and take in a deep, cleansing breath. Imagine light filling your lungs as you do so, then hold it for just a few moments. And then when you breathe back out again and lower your shoulders and feel your tension and anxiousness lessen, open your eyes. Where are they drawn most first? And that is the pile I recommend you choose. I always say you'll kind of feel it like a sense or an intuition in your gut when you're looking at the right pile. Or sometimes I even just think of in my head, spirit guides, choose a number for me, and you can choose that way too. But whatever your method, you could even just say what looks the coolest. That works perfectly fine too. You can drop down to the description box below or the top pinned comment beneath the reading, find the timestamp for your pile, and I'll see you in our chat about the life purpose that your higher self wants to discuss with you right now. See you in the reading. Hello there, pile number 1. Welcome to your Pick a Card life purpose reading today. And of course, as you recall, you were drawn to Melusine as your pile leader. So in the intro, when I said she kind of looks like a mermaid, I was half correct. So Melusine are technically beings of the sea, hence the fin legs, but they can also walk on land because their fins will turn into legs when they touch the shore. So what I'm hearing as to how that relates to your life purpose, pile 1, is you're someone who is meant to walk 2 different worlds. You're someone who is meant to bridge gaps between different groups of people. So maybe you've seen a lot in your life, if not recently, then in general. You tend to maybe drift between different friend groups. Maybe you never really were caught in just like one clique in high school. Like, some people, oh, they were with the nerds. Some people were more popular. People were in like band or choir. Or they were the theater kids, whatever, etc. For you, pile 1, it's like you were always able to kind of drift between different groups and see things from different perspectives. And I think that also just denotes in general that you have a very curious mind and you have the type of personality where you get along with a lot of different kinds of people. So how that relates to your life purpose as well, pile 1, is I think you're supposed to be a change bringer in terms of bringing these different ideas that you hear in different groups of people and sharing them like with different groups. Okay. So for example, you might have one group of friends where, you learned this kind of lesson, and then a year later you have this different group of friends and that crops up and you're able to kind of guide someone in that friend group based on something that a different friend did in the first friend group like a while back. Does that kind of make sense, pile 1? So you are you walk the boundary. And, you know, sometimes that might even crop up in terms of spirituality. You know, maybe even from a very young age, you were the type of person who, of course, was in the mundane world, as we all are, living in these 3D flesh bodies, but someone who also was able to see beyond. So perhaps could even be genetic, or maybe just you and your family when you were young, you had the ability to, say, like, see ghosts. Maybe you've been kind of a medium type person, or maybe you were always kind of attracted to the beyond, even just in terms of supernatural things. Like, maybe that's exactly why you picked a supernatural being for your pile leader, because you were always just thirsting for curiosity about what is beyond the world that I'm in, okay? And that serves you in so many different ways. And on top of that, pile 1, it makes you a very well-rounded person. I think you, in comparison to, like, the general population, you tend to be the kind of person who, like, some people kind of get stuck in these silos, right? Pile 1. Some people kind of get stuck in, like, their exact group. They never really change much throughout their life. And I think you are just this, you take on so many different perspectives, and you take on so many different kinds of friendships with different kinds of people that it's almost like it's kind of like you're speedrunning life in terms of life lessons, because you extract so much from other people that you learn far more than most people do, because not only do you take, of course, your own perspective into account, but you learn so much from the perspectives of others. So really, you know, and this might sound kind of odd, pile 1, at least this particular life purpose is almost like you being a blender of ideas. Like, if you were to take a literal blender and take ideas from different groups or different perspectives and throw them in and blend them all up into one smoothie, out would pop your brain. So that's actually a really good sign, too, of empathy as well, pile 1. Empathy seems to be a part of your life purpose, too, because in order to see from different perspectives and the way that different people live, you have to have a really strong empathy, or empathetic ability, I should say. So maybe even beyond you having abilities as a child, or at least somewhat young in your life up to this point, you also had, like, an empathic ability, the ability to feel other people's emotions, okay? So that is at least what is popping out right away with your pile leader. I also think because of this ability to walk between different worlds and, like, different groups of people, you've always had kind of a really strong independent streak. So I think independence is another big part of your life purpose. Some of you, and it depends on where you're at in your life, pile 1, some of you might have really struggled with independence in terms of being so independent that you felt kind of like separated from people. Maybe that was more of like an earlier life struggle. Or some of you might have struggled with independence in the opposite way, where, you know, maybe you were a bit more clingy when you were younger, or like, I mean, maybe that's why you had met like so many different friend groups, is because you tended to cling to people. So part of this life purpose too is finding a good balance between the two, not being so independent that you don't fulfill the life purpose, because then you're not interacting with enough people to spread those different perspectives around, but not being, you know, so clingy that you only kind of stick with like one group of people. It's like being able to spread your wings and fly between those different perspectives and those different groups of people. Okay, so really cool life purpose so far. Of course, we have plenty of other cards to get to, but there was just so much depth coming from that first card with Melusine that I wanted to cover all of that. You might have also kind of struggled with identity too. Maybe because you see so much merit in different perspectives, it's really been hard for you to like coalesce all of that into you and who you are as a person. Maybe a lot of your identity kind of changes from day to day, at least in terms of like, you know, maybe one day you see yourself as the hero of something, the next day you see yourself as the villain, one day you see yourself as a creative, the other day you might see yourself as someone who's very like more on the logical side of things. And like I almost want to say it gives me like chameleon vibes, but I mean that in like a positive connotation, pile 1, not a negative, like, because sometimes you call someone like a chameleon and you're like, oh well, like they're two-faced, or like, oh, they're just trying to blend in with everybody. Like, I don't mean it that way at all. I mean it in terms of like, you're a chameleon in like the best way possible. But like I said, that might have given you some struggle with your identity, because it's just, you're so open to different ways of thinking and seeing life that there's a little bit of a lack of rigidity in who you are. And speaking of, death just popped out, which literally death means change in tarot, pile number 1. Look at that. And we have a person who's standing in the middle of a bunch of horses, kind of spinning around, like ideas spinning around in your head. But we see the independence theme too, where he's standing in the middle, but he's not going with the herd in the direction that they're spinning. So it's like I think you also just have a really good insight into social dynamics too, because you have been such a really strong observer of people. But in general too, yeah, death means change. Always changing, constant changing. And two, that can also mean, going back to the spirituality of, when we talked about when you were young, maybe that you were a medium and you saw ghosts on the other side and like different things, right? Like you were able to face death, or like you weren't afraid of death like most kids were, at least in terms of understanding it as a concept. So some of you might even kind of work with death a lot in your adult life. Like some of you might be hospice nurses, or like you work in like funeral homes, like you work with the dying or the dead, right? In like an empathetic way, of course. 4 and 5. Okay, so there's the other 4 cards. Let's look at what else pops up. So we have death. We have the 4 of Wands reversed. Okay, so that can mean harmony in the home or lack of harmony in the home. Let me get the other cards on the table before I expand on that. We have the 5 of Swords reversed. Okay, avoiding conflicts. Interesting. And then 4, we've got, justice. Okay, so some of you might also have a bit of a justice streak as well as part of this life purpose. All right, maybe that's part of why you like so many different perspectives, is because you want to see, like, well, what is the truest way to see life? What is the most just way to see life? And then we've got the 2 of Wands, a bit of a dreamer energy too. Dreaming and planning for the future. So we have a lot of Wands energy, so that's lots of fire pile, number 1. And people that have a lot of fire in their life purpose spread tend to be very creative, passionate, ambitious sometimes. That can be another way that fire represents itself or manifests in your life. I do see a little bit of imbalance here with the 4 of Wands reversed in that way, because the 4 of Wands reversed can mean, like I said, well, there is a bit of like stability in the home with it being upright, but reversed it can mean like a lack of stability in the home. And specifically this particular depiction is like a group of people like having a celebration, okay? That might represent you kind of feeling on the outside, especially for those of you that have been like the more independent type. You do tend to go to like a lot of different groups, I'm hearing, but you might have struggled with earlier in your life, or you maybe still struggle with that right now, pile number 1, of feeling kind of separate from the group, always kind of feeling like, I'm on the outside looking in. So part of your life purpose is to, dive in more. Okay, to dive in more. And not just add to these groups in a way of, here I am observing, but add to these groups in the way of, here I am contributing. Okay, so if there's any piece of advice so far that your higher self has for you, it's try to get more involved in social groups, even more than you are already. Not just in terms of like seeing people and hearing from them, but also sharing more of yourself and contributing to them, especially where it comes, when it comes to perspectives that you gained from different experiences in life and different groups of people that you've been with, okay? Because remember that metaphor we used. Your brain is like all those different perspectives thrown into a blender, and then out comes your brain as the smoothie, which, that might be kind of a weird, maybe even morbid imagery. I don't mean it that way, but you know what I mean? Like that blender metaphor, keep thinking of that, pile number 1. But what's interesting here is that we have the 5 of Swords reversed, especially as the heart of the matter, I like to call the central card. Maybe some of your fear in integrating with groups more has been a lot regarding like fearing conflict. Like maybe you're afraid that if you do share those perspectives with people that, it's going to kind of clash, or like people won't like my ideas, or, I'll feel stupid. I feel like they're not going to accept, and this, especially for those of you who are younger, or like you haven't worked through this type of energy yet, that might be quite prominent. Or for those of you that have worked through this already, this might be you kind of nodding along like, oh yeah, I did that in the past, right? I was more afraid, but maybe now you're at a point where, you share yourself more and share more about your perspectives more, especially when it comes to standing up for the right thing. You have a justice streak, pile number 1, that might manifest in some of you having actually literally gotten into like legality type jobs, like a lawyer, paralegal, a judge, etc., those types of things. or maybe just in like your day-to-day life, even if it's not your career, you tend to be very fairness focused, I think, okay? So that's also a really specific way that spirit and your higher self wants you to share your perspectives with people in these groups, is when someone needs to stand up for the right thing to do and no one else is standing up, that means you, pile number 1. You're the one that is meant to stand up for the right thing by bringing in these different perspectives and showing people the light. Okay, even she's like holding literally lanterns here. Beautiful imagery, right? Showing them the light in the darkness. Okay, especially during conflicts too, because that's the 5 of Swords as well. It can mean we've had a harsh conflict. Okay, we fought. You're supposed to be a mediator of sorts as well. So maybe in your current life right now, pile number 1, you've been finding yourself mediating a lot. You know, maybe that's why your higher self wants to talk to you about this particular life purpose right now. Or actually multiple have kind of come out here, I should say, really. And if that's the case, that's part of your life purpose really coming to fruition here, pile 1, is leaning into that mediation energy here with the Justice card, okay? Doing the right thing when people are in conflict, when there's disharmony, okay? Bringing positive change. And then we also have the 2 of Wands. It's that dreamer energy I was talking to you about just a second ago, right? The 2 of Wands is all about planning for the future. We have a woman here holding one of the wands and looking off into the future towards the sunset, and she's got the world above her head. Like, the world is on her mind. The world is her oyster. She's planning ahead. So you might be kind of a big dreamer energy as well, pile 1. You know, maybe you want to travel a lot because of those different perspectives too. Maybe that's what draws you to traveling, is the idea of seeing the world in the different ways that different pieces of humanity have manifested their viewpoints, okay? In which case too, that really means travel is a good thing for you. That is part of your life purpose, is to see life from those different cultural perspectives, okay? And that's another thing you can even bring back with you too, is like, well, you know, even if it's as mundane as something as like, you know, helping mediate an argument here at home, you can bring perspectives that you learned during your travels back home with you, okay? And connecting humanity even more in that way too. And then too, just with the 2 of Wands, planning for the future. You tend to be a planning type, I almost wonder. And I know you got a lot of fire cards, pile number 1, with all the wands, but that almost makes me get like Virgo vibes. Every Virgo I've ever met has been a really big planner. So you almost kind of seem like you're a Virgo to me, or you have a lot of Virgo placements in your chart because of that. You're very organized. You're supposed to be organized. And maybe part of that is even like organizing people. Let's grab your Oracle cards as well, and then we'll see the whole message kind of expanded together. There's even so though, like, just with those 5 cards, there's more that I want to say, but let's make sure we draw the Oracle cards here just to see anything else, higher self, their life purpose, especially right now. My world walkers. There we go. We've got the King, more fire energy, control and reversal of fortune. So leadership. That's another thing popping out here, pile number 1. A king and more fire. So I know I said some of you are Virgos. I think you have a lot of Virgo placements, but I think a lot of you also have a lot of fire placements with your astrological chart. For some reason, Aries is really popping out prominently too. And then we have the Sailor. So a little bit of, this is earth energy actually, with that particular alchemical symbol. New influences and wanderlust. So what did I tell you, pile number 1? There's something to do with travel that is part of your life purpose. You're meant to travel. You're supposed to see things and wander and go and chase far horizons, okay? And then too, the control with the King just makes me think once again of someone who's very like organized and likes to plan, okay? And reversal of fortune is interesting. Yeah, let's keep drawing those cards. But there's even more messages popping out here. So we've got a little bit of earth here with the Sailor, more fire with the King. Okay, anything else you want to say, higher self of pile 1? You're like the well-traveled mediator, pile 1. We have purification, okay? And, you know, that makes me think, once again, and I hope it's not too repetitive, pile number 1, but as I was saying before, it's like you going to these different groups and finding like the core truths within those groups and those different perspectives. And it's like you are this purification, or you're meant to be at least, of those ideals into like one blend together. Okay, like that blender metaphor we used earlier. Like you're meant to see life in these different ways and find the truest, purest kernels of those truths that are universal amongst different kinds of cultures and different human beings. Okay. Like, what is the truest universal truth that you have found across the world? Okay. There we go, that one right there. I'm feeling we have, and actually, interesting, we have broken dreams. Only you can accept or reject your dreams. You know, and I think this might be, because this is, sometimes people use this as a shadow work deck, the Lantern Oracle. That might be where you've kind of struggled a little bit with this life purpose in the past, or maybe even right now. Pile number one is, you know, maybe you've had a lot of dreams that have felt broken, or right now maybe you had a dream recently that you wanted, you were striving for. That might be actually where this Two of Wands energy is coming in, because that is the planning dreaming card, right? And for some reason it eluded you, like the shell that she's picking apart here in this picture. It eluded you, it shattered. Okay. Here, one moment. Let's see. Sorry I'm so silent, pile number one. I'm getting a bit of a message coming through, but, broken dreams. You know what it is, pile number one? Once again, sorry that I paused for so long, but there was a message coming through. You're supposed to inspire other people too. Not only, I think right now, you maybe recently gone through a bit of a moment of like, oh, you had this dream, it kind of felt like it shattered. But I think you're also meant to help other people when they feel like their dream has shattered and inspire them again, because that is where a lot of this fire energy comes in too. Because remember in the beginning I said a lot of fire energy is like creativity and ambition and passion for things, okay? You're supposed to be like a guiding light of passion for other people, okay? When they feel at their lowest, when they feel like their dreams are broken, you are that different perspective. You know, I almost wonder, and this feel free to tell me if this doesn't resonate in the comments down below, pile one. I wonder if a part of what you have been at least like led to, or maybe you're even drawn to it on a soul level, is like hearing stories of people that have been at their absolute lowest and then like learning how they bounced back from that absolute valley of low in their life. Or maybe you're really drawn to stories, even if they're fictional, of characters that are like at their absolute lowest and then like succeeding beyond their wildest dreams afterwards. There's something about that that's very core to your soul I'm feeling here in this reading. It's like you... Oh, how to put it, pile one. It's almost like, and it's really odd, the imagery I'm being shown is like a trampoline, like bouncing back up after you've been at the absolute lowest. It's either two that maybe you've struggled with that a lot in your own life, like maybe you've had like a lot of like very low lows, pile one, and you're meant to, or you already have multiple times like been able to bounce back up. And so that's part of the guiding light that you have for other people, is bringing them that perspective of, I've been at my lowest low too, here's how I got out of it, and then helping people in that way, okay, being the guiding light of how do I get out of the valleys of life, right? But it's also, on the other hand, it's not even just like in terms of like literal advice you might be able to give to people, but inspiration in that like your story inspires others to achieve and to strive again after they feel like there's no way out, in terms of like they feel like, oh man, I'm at the lowest, I can't go anywhere, like it's all for naught. But then you are there as a reminder to people of that it's possible to bounce back. Like I'm drawn to that trampoline imagery again, pile number one. Like that shining, beautiful sunflower in other people's lives, okay? Because that's another thing with sunflowers is they do purify soil. That's why they're representative in this particular oracle card. So it's like finding the gold and the good and the light in what was dark before, in what was felt like there was no possible chance for life to grow there. Kind of like, and I, sorry if I'm rambling a little bit, pile number one, but it's a resilience is what it is. That's the word I want to use. You have like a really high resilience, and it just sparks inspiration in other people, I feel like. And I think too, that's part of, maybe even when you travel, you don't even necessarily just want to travel to, like the most renowned places, like, or really famous cities in the world or whatever, or like really elaborate, fancy places. I think too, you want to see perspectives of life of like everyday people and like maybe the less seen places that aren't as glamorized. And it's so refreshing because it's like there's a part of you too that I think appreciates humanity in the mundane every day. And I know that sounds odd, pile number one, but it's like you don't just seek travel in these different perspectives for the point of only seeing, like life at its best. You also want to see like life, I don't want to say at its worst, because that sounds weird, pile one, but it's almost like, I'm trying to find the best way to describe it. It's like I think it's because you are drawn to those stories of bouncing back. And that, also makes me think once again of like the two worlds metaphor. Of like seeing life both from the glamorized perspective of this is life at its best, but then also seeing like the perspective in a sobering way of this can be life at its worst. And then like finding, well, what is the true life between the ups and downs and the valleys and the mountains? Okay. So maybe right now, like I said, recently you've been going through a dream that maybe kind of broke, or you feel like you're kind of down. And part of why your higher self is reaching out to you about this, pile number one, is because they want to remind you the way that you've seen how people can bounce back. They want to remind you of the way that you've seen life from so many different viewpoints. Especially in terms of like people when they've been at their lowest and then when they've skyrocketed back to their highest, okay? They want you to remember that life isn't about achieving the goal. It's a lot about the journey as well, okay? They want you to remember too that every single experience, even if you didn't reach the exact criteria of success that you were looking for, doesn't mean that you didn't gain some golden kernel of wisdom in the struggle on the way there, and of course too in the bounce back as well. Because there's one message that's coming through that's not necessarily life purpose related. It's like your higher self is saying there's something about, especially for those of you that have gone through a recent disappointment like that with a broken dream of some sort, that there's a bounce back that you're not expecting. Okay, so it's kind of a side message to the life purpose message, but I think that's why they want to remind you of that, okay? They want to remind you. Let's see, anything else that I missed? So quite a few life purposes have come out with this reading, pile number one. I mean, just to reiterate, you're supposed to travel. You're supposed to see from different perspectives and be in like different groups, okay? You have an open-mindedness to you, an empathetic mindedness to you. Very spiritually strong. I'm also hearing, I think some of you might even have been able to see the other side even when you were kids, right? And then two, you're someone who is very organized, very planning. But then you also have a comfort with change. You're a changer. That chameleon energy we were talking about earlier. And that helps you blend into these different groups so that you can gain those different perspectives. I think people just have like an initial really good trust of you too because of that, pile number one. Like you blend in really well in a positive way. Like I said, there might have been some struggle with, kind of the, being maybe too independent sometimes when you were younger, or maybe being like too clingy when you were younger. And then, some of you might fall into either one of those categories when you were younger, and then like learning the lesson of finding the perfect blend of both, okay? Of being independent minded enough to remember the perspectives from other groups that you've been in, and then bringing that perspective to the group that you're in right now. But then also, like, having enough of a connection to people, too, that you can really actually reach them. So really, if I had to summarize you in one phrase, or this life purpose in one phrase, pile 1, it's you are a perspective bringer. You're a perspective seeker, a perspective bringer, a perspective changer, too. I think you have a really good capacity to change minds. I think that's another life purpose coming through, not just in the way that we talked about before with, you know, helping people bounce back, helping them see that there's mountains after valleys, that are, you know, highs after the lows of life, but in general, too, just making them see the world in so many different ways. I actually think, especially if you do travel pile 1, it would be a really good idea to actually write or record your travels. I don't know, maybe some of you would like a YouTube with traveling, you know, doing travel vlogs, or even like autobiographical content of, you know, these are my travels and this is what I learned. These are the universal truths of humanity that I learned as I was traveling, and things like that, okay? So keep dreaming, pile number 1. Lean into that strength of yours of walking 2 different worlds at all times, okay? And lean into that strength of yours as a leader that helps show people the way with different perspectives and seeing the light of life even when they're in the darkest of shadows, okay? So, really cool life purposes that came out today. I hope that you liked the reading, pile number 1, and most of all, that it helped and resonated with you. And if so, please like the video, comment down below, and of course, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so yet. And as I always say in our tradition, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next reading. Bye, pile 1. Hello there, pile number 2. Welcome to your Pick a Card life purpose reading today. And of course, as you recall, you were drawn to the very beautiful Hawk card for your pile leader. Now, what this tells me about like how you were drawn to this particular pile leader is, I think your life purpose, your higher self wants to talk about, is related to the way you see things and your focus and your vision, because as we all know, hawks are known to be like very high visual creatures. They have really, really good eyesight to help them with their hunting, you know, because you know that, you know, they tend to soar really high above and they look down below in fields and forests and try to find their prey, okay? So clear insight, clear vision, and really, really strong focus. I also am getting a bit of a sense that some of you, you know, it's interesting. So this actually kind of might be a little bit of it like advice or a little bit of a flaw with your life purpose. Some of you might tend to be like absolute workaholics, okay? And some of you might trend in the opposite way, where maybe you kind of struggle with like procrastination and like focusing on other things in life rather than work. I mean, there's pros and cons to both ways. So like not judging, you know, the workaholics or the people that are the opposite here, of course. But why I bring that up is because I think another part of your life purpose too is to like marry the two if you have not already gotten to that point already, okay? So for some of you that are kind of like workaholics, maybe even that's popping up right now, maybe you're working too hard, or, you know, maybe there's a job that you're at. It could be the opposite where it's like, you know, like maybe typically you're kind of a workaholic, but there's just something really like, you just don't feel enthused about this particular job. Maybe that's how like this particular life purpose has been relevant to you right now. It's like your higher self mentioning it because they want to remind you of finding the balance between the two. So, you know, making sure you work hard, but not hard and like so hard that you get completely tired out and run out of self-care, okay? Or just super anxious, super stressed. And then same thing on the opposite side, making sure to rest, but not resting too much that you neglect your work, okay? So, because especially with hawks, like I think of someone that's very vigilant. I think of someone that's very, you know, like super, super attuned to things, but then on the opposite side, you could even see hawks as like the completely different in the way that, you know, they kind of wait a long time before they go down and they, you know, they strike, okay? Because, you know, they have to kind of soar above, they have to like look down and see, well, where is the prey? How do I want to tackle this too? So just keep that in mind with this life purpose. There might be a little bit of a struggle between, yeah, workaholic or complete opposite. And then I'm trying to think if there's any other things that came to mind. I tend to meditate on the pile leaders before I do the recording, just to get the messages out. So let me look at my notes here. Pile number 2. Oh, that was another thing. So I think sometimes too, some of you might manifest this life purpose of focus in ways that can either help you or hold you back. One message that was prominently coming out when I was meditating on the card here before I recorded this is some of you might have like super hyper focuses, like things that you're really 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 into that you could just do for like hours every day. And some of you might also, I was hearing, like have like maybe ADD or ADHD. Okay. That can also be, you know, change your life in terms of, you know, like ability to focus or focusing on certain things. Okay, so that might be also part of this life purpose, where focus ties in. And two, the way that you interact with other people. And I think a lot of you tend to watch people a lot, maybe not interact enough. So the way that might manifest right now is like you tend to be like on the outside looking in with, you know, certain groups of people. Maybe you're a lot more introverted, okay? And so part of this might be your higher self kind of nudging you towards, let's interact with people a little bit more. Let's do less looking in from the outside and a little bit more of looking around on the inside in terms of interacting with social groups. Or if that doesn't resonate right now, pile number 2, it might also be that that was this thing that you struggled with, you know, earlier in life, or same thing with like the ADD, ADHD related thing. Like, you know, I don't personally have ADD or ADHD, but I know from people that I do know that have it, like, you know, sometimes it's like a lifetime struggle with, you know, either working like with medications with it, or, you know, trying to find other ways to kind of like get yourself to like be able to focus and things like that. Okay, so we'll see how else like all these things, so many things are popping out, like how they tie into your life purpose. But that is what I did see with the meditation before, when I was looking at your pile leader. So let's grab your tarot cards here, see if there's anything else that pops out. I also wonder if some of you are drawn to different sports that require, or hobbies, I should say too, that require a lot of really good eyesight. Like I want to say either like sharpshooting or like archery, or I'm trying to think like what else requires a really good eye. Like very detail oriented, like needlework or things like that. It's something that requires good vision. Fashion maybe even for some of you, or like makeup. Being able to like look at things with like a really good critical eye. I think that's one of your strengths, pile number 2. Just a lot about eyes too. And if you're drawn to any like deities, like Horus, Ra, like we think of like the Eye of Horus, the Eye of Ra, might be some deities that you've been drawn to in the past as well. Let's see, I feel that one right there. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Let's see what else pops out. Pile 2, we have the 9 of Swords, anxiety. Okay. Worrying about something, being worried a lot. You know, part of this too, pile number 2, especially for those of you like that maybe like have ADD or ADHD, or like you struggled with at least like managing with it in the past. At least what I've heard, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but sometimes that can go like hand in hand with having anxiety. And you know, of course, someone that has had anxiety, to, you know, related myself, like sometimes that can be a really big struggle in life, dealing with that anxiety, right? It can make us want to be that person that's on the outside looking in. Like I was saying before, like maybe you observe people a lot, but you struggle with wanting to like interact more with them. It could even be a sense of social anxiety as well. Not just like anxiety disorder, like I was mentioning before, like I said, like I personally struggle with before, but social anxiety too, which is kind of similar but separate. So part of this life purpose might be working through that. Let's look at the other cards. We have the 7 of Cups reversed. Okay. Seeing reality from illusions, seeing dreams from fantasies and realities, and what's possible, what's not. Okay. Water energy. We have, the Empress. Lots of creative energy as well. I think a lot of you are creative people. Maybe that's a part of, you know, your introversion, that it's like served you a lot, and also your ability to observe other people. Because the Empress is a lot, she has a lot to do with being creative and like nurturing as well. You also might just be very healing people, pile number 2. Okay, so maybe a lot of you are healers. So you've got more cups, all this water energy. So you might be a water sign, pile number 2. We have this Queen of Cups reversed, making sure to follow our heart. And then last but not least, we have the Ace of Swords. Okay, we've got another swords. So we have all water or air energy here in this pile. So in terms of astrological placements, like I said, I think a lot of you have like majority water or are a water sun sign. Or it could be possible that, you know, you've got like a lot of like air mixed in there too. And especially with hawk, we think of hawks as like air, birds, flying, etc., wind. Let's see here, pile number 2. So we already talked about maybe the struggle with some, mental health related things like anxiety, etc., or things like ADD, ADHD, that had maybe been a part of, like a social anxiety, or had been a part of, a struggle with being a bit more isolated, okay? So part of that life purpose is learning, like I said, to connect with other people more. I think, too, part of this is a life purpose that you're meant to express yourself more. Because not only do we have the Ace of Swords, which is like, can literally on a physical, literal level, pile number 2 represent like speaking or saying something to someone. You have the Queen of Cups here reversed, as in that is something to be worked on with it being a reversal in terms of I'm going to share my heart with others, okay? So, if especially recently, or maybe even throughout your whole entire life, you've struggled with wanting to share yourself with others in terms of your ideas, or feeling confident about sharing your opinions, or feeling confident about sharing, like, you in general, like I said, that can be a total social anxiety thing too. You're really being encouraged to share those parts of yourself more with this life purpose because, and this is the reason why, is because there is an inherent natural healing aspect of you that resonates and heals other people, okay? You're definitely a healer type. I see that especially with the Empress being your heart of the matter or core card here. You're nurturing. Sometimes it might even manifest for some of you in terms of you like literally have like a job of nurturing. Maybe you are a stay-at-home parent, or you are a nurse, or you do some sort of job related to like cooking or healing other people, etc., working, with children, things like that, especially because the Empress can also be motherhood, right? You're a healer through and through. I mean, you have that really, really good focus and vision, pile number 2, with the hawk and everything else that we talked about so far. But if I had to really key down, like, your best trait here, it is that healing heart that you have. Also, especially in terms of not just the physical body, that is a thing, but you're healing in terms of people's emotions. Which, once again, it just makes me think of a water sign. I think a lot of you are a water sign. But, helping people really to parse through their different dreams and parse through like what's possible for them. I think you help people see, or you're supposed to at least, because life purpose, right? Help them see possibilities. Help them also feel inspired to share more of themselves. Because, especially for those of you that might have already worked through a lot of that, like you worked through anxiety, social anxiety, things like that, or, same thing too with, when we do have things like anxiety or ADHD or whatever, it's insert thing here, that can make us feel anxious about interacting with other people because we fear judgment, right? Especially with social anxiety, we fear judgment. We're like, oh God, what do they think of me? Like, ugh. So, like I said, some of you might, for those of you that have already kind of worked through those things, your purpose now then is to help other people work through those things. So especially, and life purpose doesn't always technically mean your job. It can be. Sometimes people are aligned with their job, with their life purpose. Doesn't have to be, though. Like, even getting into, like, therapy to help people through, like, managing ADHD, ADD, or managing social anxiety, things like that. So that they do feel more confident in what they bring into the world and what they, like, they don't feel like who they are on a fundamental level is flawed. And they don't feel like they're unable to share more of themselves. So especially those of you that have worked through that already, you're supposed to be a mentor to people that were like who you were when you were younger with those struggles. Okay, so that's another life purpose popping through, okay? Also sharing ideas here with the Ace of Swords. You're sharp-minded. I'm going to give you that. And I think, sometimes that's actually where anxiety can come in, is because sometimes people with anxiety are they have such a mental strength to them in terms of overthinking things. It can be a blessing because they think through things very, very detailed. It's a good thing at times. But sometimes it's a curse too, because they overthink things and then they almost worry too much, hence the anxiety, right? But it's a strength too, like I said, because you do have really good ideas. You have a very quick mind, pile number 2, okay? You're really good about thinking. So not only are you really strong in terms of your heart, you're really strong in terms of your mind, okay? It's just that, working through taming the darker parts of the mind, especially with anxiety, might be part of the obstacle you're working through. And maybe that's even what you're going through right now, and that's why your higher self wants to mention it right now, pile number 2, is because they want you to show more of the light of who you are inside yourself without the shackles of, say, anxiety holding you back, okay? And nurturing dreams too, nurturing dreams in others. I think some of you might also be, because you are such a visionary type, you're such a really good, you're really good about like seeing things differently as well, like different perspectives. Some of you might really be into, say, fantasy or like speculative fiction in general, like you like horror, sci-fi, fantasy genre stuff. I get that sense off of you too. Also strong dreamers. I wonder in terms of spiritual gifts, if some of you are also really good with like dream related things, like astral projection is the main thing coming to mind. But also like prophetic dreams. Like, you know, if you ever had a dream and then later on you got deja vu and it's like, oh, I've dreamed this before. Like you had a prophetic vision in a dream, like that type of energy. I get the sense that you're very attuned to the other side in that way, in the way that you see things, both in waking life, at least to an extent, but especially in sleeping unconscious life. You have a really strong power in the way that you can see the other side when you are unconscious. Okay, so yeah, like sleeping mainly with astral projection and things like that. Oh, lucid dreaming, of course, too. But yeah, big dreamer energy. Big seeing the other side. Creatives, definitely to share your creativity with the world. Okay, that's another thing popping through here with that Empress, okay? Especially next to, you know, the Seven of Cups reversed. Because especially the Seven of Cups reversed is someone who's playing drums on the shells. So some of you actually might be pretty musically inclined. Creatives too. Well, even like when you look at the conch shell or the, I guess it's not technically a conch, but it is the shell that she's holding here in the Queen of Cups. It's almost like the horns people would blow. Like I don't know exactly what they're called, but like I've seen them before in like movies where like people blow on a horn that's made out of a shell, and it's kind of like, so something to do with like music or speaking. It could even be writing too, but something to do with your voice especially. And I think part of that journey with that life purpose of getting over the anxiety and whatnot was learning to share your voice more. That can be another way that the Ace of Swords represents itself. So, yeah, we haven't even gotten to your Oracle cards yet, but there's so much good stuff coming through here just with your tarot cards. So, yeah, let's draw your Oracle cards, though, pile number 2. I want to see more about other messages, too. And, of course, some of them might reflect the ones that we already talked about so far. So, big dreamers, overcoming anxiety. Okay. So we've got, oh boy, that's a lot of cards here. I don't know if I can take all of those. So you know what I'm going to do? We're going to shuffle one more time. Unfortunately, I do have limited space here on the desk, pile number 2, but... Okay, higher self. Give me like 2 maybe. Thank you. Okay, just popped out like 4 more. Okay, it really just wants to pop out like 4 of them. So you know what? We're going to take it this time. Even though there's, well, actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh boy. Okay. We're going to go through them a lot, so, and we'll see what common themes are. So we have the twins with more water, okay? Self-protection, dual nature. Some of you might actually be twins, right? So dual nature is interesting. More birds, too, have popped up. We have another water. Okay, for sure, a lot of you are water sign. I'm kidding. We have the herald with small regrets and longing, okay? We have the dancer. Oh my god, another water sign. Self-expression and strength. So some of you might actually be really good at dance, too. But self-expression as well, just in like we talked about before with, you know, moving through, say, social anxiety and sharing more with others. But self-expression too, and the creativity we talked about. And then we finally have an air sign again, which we did have some swords before. The guide, inheritance and correction, ringing the bell. Another water sign. We have the puppeteer, explanations and apologies. And then we have the shepherd, which is an earth sign, celebration and family. Wow, that's a lot of cards. Okay. Apparently your higher self wanted a lot of Citadel Oracle cards today, so sorry it's kind of crowded. But you know what that means, pile number 2, is that not only is your life purpose very, at least the ones they want to talk to you about right now are very multifaceted. I think you, as a person, are very multifaceted. You might kind of sense that you're a bit of like a jack of all trades. Like maybe you were drawn to a lot of different hobbies and you never really kind of settled on one, or you kind of drift between different hobbies all the time. Maybe that's where that hyper focus comes in. Like one day you'll do 8 hours on this hobby, and then like the next day you'll do 3 hours on another hobby, etc. But yeah, water energy everywhere. Big dreamers, very emotional people, right? Very intuitive people as well, especially with the dreaming thing that we talked about, or sleep, astral projection, lucid dreaming, etc. And let's see what else pops here as a theme. There's a little bit of a theme with family. We do see that with the shepherd as well as the guide with inheritance. Okay, so I almost wonder too if maybe a lot of people in your family struggled with, say, anxiety or like ADHD. It could be like genetic. And part of your life purpose is breaking through that in terms of like, you know, maybe they kind of coped with it in bad ways, like previous generations in your family, and like you are the one that's meant to break that cycle and coping with, say, like anxiety in a positive way. Okay. Because I do see a bit of you like being a generation breaker, of breaking, you know, generational problems like that in terms of like at least like coping positively with, you know, with the hands that life deals with, or the hands that were dealt from life, right? Very good at speaking too. Even if you deal with anxiety, you're very good at speaking, pile number 2. We saw that with the Ace of Swords, but I'm also seeing that with the Puppeteer, you know, explanations, etc. Very good at self-expression. Very good with the arts. For those of you that are artistic and have not shared whatever your art medium is with the world, I don't care if it's singing, I don't care if it's art, like painting, whatever, drawing, music, whatever, share it with the world, please. That's a really prominent theme coming out here as well. And then let's see. Let's look at what was the Herald? Small regrets and longing. Definitely dreamers as well. I already said that, I know, but I don't know. You've got some pretty good ideas here, pile number 2. I almost want to say you're dreamy to the point of like inventive. Maybe that's where a lot of this air and this water energy really come to meet, is you're a big dreamer, but you're also really good about thinking through, well, how do I manifest this? I get the sense you dress really well too. For some reason that's popping through. And I know that's not a life purpose, but there's something about the way like you dress or your fashion, or like you're really good. It's like expressing yourself through the way that you dress. You're really good about that. And maybe that's the way you speak a lot. Maybe you don't always speak just with your words. You speak a lot with your actions, or how you express yourself in ways that aren't just through how you talk. So through that art, or through the way that you dress. Maybe that was the way that you learned to speak when you felt too afraid to speak because of things like anxiety, pile number 2. Beautiful. Okay, we still have other oracle cards too, so it was like 6 of them popped out with this particular deck. Yeah, I always kind of struggle with, do I always take, like, when a big chunk of cards falls out, or, like, do I put them back in and ask for just 2? Usually I ask Spirit for just, like, 2 or whatever, but the fact that your pile number 2 just multiple times was like, here's a whole spread of cards, I was like, okay, I get the hint. I'll take a big pile. Alright, I feel I'm drawn to this one. We have Truth. Okay, speaking of people that are good with air energy, Truth. I think that's a part of how you see the world, pile number 2. You're good about seeing truth. You're good about expressing truth. You might be drawn to fantastical things, but I think part of why you're drawn to fantastical things is because you're really good about seeing universal truths, okay? You know, just like you might read, say, a fantasy book or a sci-fi book, and, you know, a lot of people would be like, oh, that's really out there or whatever. I think you're just really drawn to, despite maybe being, like, a fan of like fantastical settings, it's the human connection in these stories that really draws you in, that universal human truth. Okay, speaking your truth as well. Okay, so another life purpose might be to make sure to speak your truth, even if it isn't just in words. Like I said, it can be in creative matters too. Make sure to speak that truth. And then last but not least, we have intention. Lacking personal direction begets confusion in life as a pawn to someone else's game of chess. Okay, so this might be a little area that you struggle with this life purpose, pile number 2. This card is all about knowing what you want to do and where you want to go, instead of being a pawn in someone else's, like they said, someone else's game of chess. So part of you might be struggling right now, or did in the past, with maybe other people trying to control you. Maybe that's part of where this anxiety came in. or where this independent streak we talked about earlier came in, like this kind of introversion looking inside from without, or outside. And so it could also be like a self-confidence thing as well. Like maybe you always kind of trusted other people's voices more than your own in the past, or you still do right now. And so part of this life purpose pile too is to remember your own voice, especially because we had that Queen of Cups reversed earlier, which is to remember what your own heart is saying. If there's any advice you walk away from this reading with, it's to always remember what your heart is saying at all times, okay? What is the truth of what your heart is saying? What is the truth deep down that you know in your gut, and following that rather than following what other people tell you? Maybe that's even where this anxiety popped in too, was a fear of what other people told you. You know, maybe you were bullied a lot as a child, and that, you know, of course, very understandably can, you know, impress a lot of personal views of yourself where like you view yourself in a negative way that really just isn't true, pile number 2. And so that's another way that you might live your life as a pawn in someone else's game of chess, is, you know, letting those perspectives that were negatively placed upon you as a child basically guide you into like what you believe about yourself. And like with that life purpose is just to let go of those negative perspectives that just aren't true, okay? You know, there are parts of you that people do want to see. There are parts of you that are very valuable for other people to see that I think maybe you don't necessarily share with others because of that fear, okay? So do share yourself and your art and whatever it is that you do to express yourself with others more, okay? That is a really prominent theme coming out here, especially with truth, okay? Share your heart with others, okay? Speak up more than you do right now with your ideas and your beliefs, okay? Let's see, and there's one more message here, pile number 2, one moment. Something to do with the Dancer card is popping out to me. Let's see, the Dancer, self-expression and strength. Oh, this is really weird, pile number 2, and this is going to sound just very bizarre and out of complete left field, but there's something about the fruit of orange, like an orange. I don't know why an orange is coming up. That's just really weird. Some of you, maybe you're eating an orange right now and you'd be like, oh my God, what's going on? An orange, which is, you know, we think of as citrus, as something, maybe even your favorite color is orange too, pile number 2. There's something to do with oranges. I don't know what that is. Feel free to weigh down in the comments down below, because right now I'm kind of mind blown. I'm like, what are you talking about oranges for, Spirit? Or you're like your higher self, like I said. But there's something about oranges. I don't know. Tell me in the comments below if that resonates and how, because I'm really curious. But I guess that's what they want to leave off on. Okay. So yes, share yourself more, pile number 2. Don't be afraid to express yourself. Don't be afraid to cast away what people said about you a long time ago that just isn't true. Okay? Be that visionary. Let's see if there's any other messages. I think that is it for today. So, of course, as always, I hope the reading helped you and that you liked it and it resonated with you, pile number 2, even the weird orange part, whatever that meant, I don't know. And if so, please like the video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And as I always say in our tradition, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next reading. Bye, pile 2. Hello there, my wonderful pile number 3. Welcome today to your life purpose reading, and as you recall, you were drawn to the cute Will-o-the-Wisp as your pile leader. So, before I recorded today, I meditated on every single pile leader to see what messages came through about your life purpose. And what I heard about for Will-o-the-Wisp for you today was something about yearning, was something about helping people also find their way in indirect means, especially because I was drawn to the way that a will-o-the-wisp is almost like a guiding light. Now, in folklore, following a will-o-the-wisp isn't always the wisest idea, because they tend to be kind of trickstery figures, right? You follow a will-o-the-wisp, it kind of leads you astray. But what I'm hearing about you, pile number 3, is the imagery of the guiding light in a positive way. Sometimes maybe you do that through joy. Maybe you help light up people's lives in that way, or that's part of your life purpose. Or maybe you help them see their way, almost kind of like, if you're familiar with the Hermit card from tarot, like sharing wisdom with others, helping them see the wisdom of life that maybe they don't necessarily recognize when they're in dark moments, okay? Especially being, Will-o-the-Wisp is in a dark scene here, right? Being that shining light, almost like a lighthouse on the coast, showing people through how to navigate, okay? And let's see what else popped through. I'm looking at my notes here from the meditation I did. Let's see. Oh, that's another thing. There's something about your mind that came through as well, pile number 3. And what came through about your brain or the way that your mind functions is, I think you really like exploring the impossible. I get the sense that you're a very curious-minded person as well. This has been kind of actually popping forward for a lot of different piles today. I think a lot of you are drawn to the unknown. You watch tarot readings, so of course you're at least a little bit interested in those things, right? But specifically you, it's like you're curious-minded in the way of kind of like a scientist, but more so in the wonder of things rather than in like the hard, cold facts of the universe. So it's like it's like dreamer energy, but it's more so in the way of like what is possible in the universe rather than let's define the universe. Okay, there's nothing about definition. It's more about how far can we expand the definition of things. Is kind of, I feel like, the way that your mind works. So very curious, maybe a little bit analytical, but of course drawn to different topics, I think. Like the supernatural is a really good example. And even you were drawn to a supernatural being as your pile leader today. So interesting. Yeah. I mean, some of you might actually even be in like STEM related fields. Just because I said that you might not necessarily see the world in a scientific way in that aspect doesn't mean that, you might actually literally work in science too. But, and if so, if you do work in science, I get the sense that for some reason astronomer is coming forward, or physicist. Maybe you're really drawn to the universe in terms of the cosmos. That, or even if you don't do it at a career level, it's like something that you were always drawn to. Maybe you were drawn to like aliens and stuff like that too as a kid. Maybe very interested in, might even be the way that you read fiction too, like especially sci-fi I'm hearing, but of course other speculative fiction like horror and fantasy, things like that. So you're the open-minded sort, pile number 3. If I had to really pin you down, I want to say you're a starseed too. Now that hasn't popped out for any other pile today, which I mean I think, at least in my experience, I think most people have at least a little bit of that energy, but you get kind of, it's a little bit out there in a good way vibes, which makes me think of a starseed. So I think you might be a starseed. Something like that. All right, let's see what else pops out with your tarot cards today. Well, for sure this one says pick me, so we're taking that one. Let's see. That one, okay. Feeling with my fingers there. Okay, so 2, 3, 4, and 5. Thank you, Spirit Higher Self of pile number 3. Starseed vibes for sure. Okay, we have the 2 of Swords, making decisions. Making decisions, okay. We have some air energy as well. The second card today is the Hierophant. Okay, spiritual authority, tradition, the way things have always been done. Old souls, I can tell you that. That's another sense I'm getting off of this particular pile. Yeah, you've lived a lot of lives, haven't you, pile number 3? Okay, and then we have the King of Swords reversed as the heart of the matter, or the core card with this particular type of reading, I like to call it. Once again, lots of air energy, so I think a lot of you might be air signs. Right, which would mean Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini. And specifically with the King of Swords reversed, that might be an area to work on, or it was like some sort of thing related to your life purpose that you worked on earlier in life. So we'll talk about that in a moment once we have every card on the table. The 5 of Cups reversed. Yes, okay, so remember what I said before about your Will-o-the-Wisp, like showing people the way, showing people the light? The 5 of Cups reversed can represent overcoming sadness. I almost wonder if a lot of you are... like, you have a really good sense of humor. If you're not, like, literally a comedian, I think you might be, like, in terms of career at least, you might be a comedian or kind of a jokester, like, with the people around you. Like, it's weird. You give me this vibe of, I don't want to say jaded because it's not, I don't get like a jaded vibe necessarily, but because your soul is old, pile number 3, like you've lived so many different incarnations, I'm getting the sense, and especially like, you know, as a starseed too, right? It's like you see life in such a realistic way and have experienced it so many times that you know how to look for like the comical side of it. Okay? Like you almost kind of remind me of like an old, for those of you that have read Shakespeare before, a lot of times he had a recurring trope character of like a jester or a fool. And oftentimes like it was funny because they would be called the fool, but it was the character that Shakespeare actually would have like the most realistic perspectives on things. So they'd be funny, but really the humor came from them actually seeing life in such a clear way. And so what I'm saying by going on that little tangent there with Shakespeare and how he wrote his fool characters, right, jesters, is that you kind of seem like that to me, pile 3. Like you're kind of a jester, kind of the jokester, kind of, you know, funny type person, but really it's like you see life in such a realistic way. And sometimes maybe that kind of gets you down. Maybe sometimes you see it so realistically that it makes you, maybe that is where the jaded came in. So maybe sometimes you're a little bit jaded, pile number 3, which totally understandable. All of us can be at sometimes, but I think you always bounce back because of your sense of humor, and I think that's a part of how you are that will-o'-the-wisp of light, or like that lighthouse showing people the way through the dark waters of life, is like you share that joy and like a good sense of humor. So part of your life purpose is to make other people happy through your sense of humor. And then we have the 4 of Pentacles, a little bit of earth energy here. Interesting. So the 4 of Pentacles is about reserving resources. Okay. Let's look at everything in totality here, pile 3. So we talked about you're meant to bring joy to other people's lives. Old soul, definitely. That is quite clear. It's almost like you've lived so many lives that it's not like you don't take life seriously, pile 3, but at the same time it's like you have that inherent knowing of, well, this is just one life, and this is like to be here on earth is like being in a school. And so it's like, I mean, it's real for sure. Like we live here in this reality and it's very real to us. But I think you have such a high spiritual perspective of things that you know, like you see life in such a different dimension than other people do because of that high spiritual perspective. I think that's where the Hierophant comes in too, because the Hierophant is like a spiritual authority, pile number 3. Someone who really gets things from that perspective. Okay. I mean, it's almost like life is a game that you've played so many times that at this time you're just experimenting and kind of seeing, well, how can it go this time? I think that's where that levity comes from, that joy in your heart and the way that you bring light to other people. So not only do they bring that light through that joy and that jokester kind of comedic energy, right? You're very witty, pile number 3. I hear that too because you have 2 swords cards. People that have swords cards in their spread, well, air signs too, but in general, tend to be pretty witty, okay? Sharp of tongue in a clever way. And you share that joy that way, but you also share it in terms of your old wisdom to other people, being that light in the darkness, and your curious-mindedness too, with that 2 of Swords as well, like being unable to make a decision. It's like she's drawing that bow back, and she hasn't quite released it yet. She's figuring out, where am I going to draw this, and where am I going to shoot this, okay? And she's blindfolded too. Like you could do things with your hands tied behind your back and blindfolded. You know what? That's another thing I'm hearing, pile 3, is that you're very skilled because of so many lives that you've lived. I mean, I think of all the piles today, you're probably the most. And I hate to use the word advanced because I really value where all of us are at in our different soul paths and our different incarnations. But you definitely like, I don't know. Out of all the piles today, you have like the wise grandparent vibes, okay, compared to the other 2. And I say that lovingly to all of you, but let's see, anything else with this life purpose? So helping people see joy. And then it's interesting because we have the King of Swords reversed, pile number 3. And the King of Swords reversed can mean either having dealt with, like a negative, I want to say maybe for some reason some of you, I don't know if some of you had problems with your father. Like a father that was a bit ruthless or harsh of tongue. Maybe that also helps you mature a lot at a young age. Like it's something to do, because a King of Swords reversed can represent someone who's either like a masculine air sign, or someone who represents that in the negative in terms of like they're, like I said, sharp of tongue. They are kind of harsh with their words. Cold sometimes is another word used to describe like the King and the Queen of Swords reversed. And so I think that really shaped who you are at a young age, and a lot of your life purpose is overcoming that and being the opposite of that parental figure. Because it's like they saw life so seriously and in such a harsh way that you almost went the opposite, pile number 3, where you said, no, we're going to look at life in a light way and in a happy way. Instead of being a drag on other people, I'm going to be happy and uplift other people and make them laugh and make them smile. Especially that 5 of Cups reversed is overcoming sorrows, okay? So keep to that, pile number 3. If you haven't been doing that already, that's part of you, okay? It's something to do with the opposite of what a father figure in your life that was negative did, okay? Let's see, we talked about spiritual authority, making decisions with the 2 of Swords, okay? And I think that has to do with your inquisitive, curious mind that we already talked about too, because the 2 of Swords can mean, seeing different perspectives, seeing in different ways, okay? That's part of what maybe causes the indecisiveness of the 2 of Swords too, because it's like, well, I can see this choice and I can see that choice. So maybe you're also really good at advice giving to other people, pile 3, I'm hearing as well. Helping other people make decisions is a part of this life purpose. And then the 4 of Pentacles just pops out here randomly at the end. And, it's really the only Earth card you've gotten so far. And 4 of Pentacles is all about reserving our resources, holding on to things, like he's holding on to these sunflowers. I want to say that you're really good at saving money. But in terms of connecting, like, this message to your life purpose, it's... especially after the 5 of Cups reversed, pile 3. You're really giving, aren't you? You're giving. I bet you that's it. You give a lot to other people. You're generous, and especially in terms of material things. Especially after someone has been upset or sad. You're not just giving in terms of your wit and your humor and uplifting their spirits. You're giving in terms of like literally helping people. You almost feel to me, pile 3, as someone that would give people the shirt off of your back. And I think that's part of your old soul energy because, obviously like you're an advanced soul, so you're very empathetic to other people, but it's like you want to make people feel safe and feel comforted. Maybe you lacked that yourself when you were younger, and so that's why it's such a focus for you, but you're supposed to be very giving. You're supposed to give to others and make them feel that security and that safety and feel like they're protected. When I say masculine energy, this can apply to both, women and men here. All of us have both feminine and masculine energy, no matter what our gender is, but you give off really strong masculine energy vibes, pile 3, and I think that's where that protectiveness and that giving comes in. Okay. Maybe even you get kind of defensive of people sometimes too. Maybe that's where kind of this fatherly energy comes in, this masculine energy, is because it's like you get protective of people. Very protective. You're supposed to protect people. So it's like warrior energy, but in terms of a shield rather than a sword. You're like a shield for other people as well. Okay. Let's also draw some of your oracle cards, because that might expand more on what we've seen so far here, pile 3. As well as add some new dimensions to what we've already been talking about. Anything else, higher self of pile 3? The Herald, small regrets and longing. We have the element of water. Okay, water, which we did see with the cups here. Yeah, helping people overcome their small regrets. I think you also really like helping other people achieve their dreams. Just a generous soul, pile 3. Kudos to you. Let's see. I'm feeling some one over here. I'll feel it in a second. There it is, right there. Okay. Took me a second. I was like, wait a minute. All right, this is the one. We have the Acolyte, new projects and learning. Okay, a bit of air energy as well. Air, with all those swords we already saw too. So more air sign indication. Also just, this is part of your wittiness and also part of your really sharp understanding of life because of your old soul perspective, pile 3, but part of your life purpose too is like, oh yeah, I don't know if you're really educated or you work in some sort of educational capacity, like at a college as a professor or teaching in general, or like, if not, that would be a really good way to express your life purpose, pile 3. You're like an ever constant curious mind, which we said that too with the Will-o-the-Wisp. Like maybe you were drawn to a lot of the impossibilities of life, those supernatural things as I was talking about, or like the universe in general. You have like a sponge brain. You have a very like high capacity for understanding. You know, and I swear I'm not just saying this to butter you up, pile 3. I think a lot of you might have a really high IQ as well. I get like big brain, like just big brain vibes off of this particular pile. Just because of, I mean, not only just all the air cards, because a lot of swords, but that Acolyte sure makes me think of that. Okay. Let's see. I don't think I missed anything with these two. We also have 2 other Oracle decks to get to as well, but definitely smart cookies. Even if you didn't technically academically succeed, pile number 3, I think, if not book smart, I think a lot of you are really book smart, don't get me wrong. But I think a lot of you are like street smart as well. It probably just lends to you having lived so many lives, too. I don't know. I feel like some of you are scientists. I don't know. You got big brains. I don't know. Some of you are really, really smart. I don't know. I'm getting just... I don't know. Feel free to weigh down in the comments down below, but... I'm curious. I always like to hear your stories and what resonates, but let's see, right? There. Okay. And then we've got happiness. Look at that. Remember I said you bring joy to other people, pile number 3. Well, look at that. We've got that right there. Being a companion to others in their dark times. Being that spark of joy with your wit and your humor. Okay. Sorry, it's a bit repetitive, but that is just being emphasized again. And we have the imagery of light once more, like the Will-o-the-Wisp, but also here the sun high in the sky with the dolphins, okay? And dolphins, too, are also very intelligent. So we have just another marker of intelligence. I think... If I'm not mistaken, I think they're technically considered, at least in terms of the way humanity measures intelligence, right? Because, of course, humans, we think we're the smartest things ever, right? We always measure things based on how they measured our intelligence. But in terms of how humanity measures it, I think dolphins are, like, the second most intelligent being on the planet. I think. Correct me down in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think it's dolphins. So, you're very smart, once again. Okay. Big brain energy. Also communicative, too, because they have actually, like, to my understanding, they have a language, like the way that they click and make noises to each other. So just more air energy, okay? You know, Gemini, Aquarius, Libra. Yeah, just spreading that joy. And then let's look at your Lantern Oracle, which might show us a little bit more of what you've struggled with these life purposes that we've talked about. And that's actually every pile today. Like I said, life purpose singular, but... every pile today just had a lot of life purposes popping out. Related ones, but... So, my joy bringers. My really, really smart people. Seeing the world for possibilities. And then we have Metamorphosis, number 11. Power and strength lie within our surrender to change. Okay, so that might mark pile number 3. A bit of a struggle with your life purpose. And some of this might be in the past, so you might think, oh, that doesn't apply to me right now. But then if you look at like how you were when you were younger, you might be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? So some of you might have struggled with a sense of adapting to change in the past, okay? You know, that can happen with especially like starseeds, because, you know, for them it's a bit of an adjustment to incarnate here. Things are very different here on Earth than they are elsewhere in the universe, right? So it's like maybe you, like, it took a while to adapt to this particular incarnation, because you are an old soul, don't get me wrong. But I think you are an old soul because of that starseed energy that had like a little bit of a problem adapting to here specifically when you were younger, okay? Or if not, like, you know, maybe still a little bit now, but you know how to cope with it a little bit more now or blend in. And so pile number 3, part of this life purpose struggle, you know, maybe you didn't share as much of your joy and your wit with others when you were younger. You know, maybe you did get so invested in a lot of intellectual pursuits because you felt so disconnected from other people, because of that kind of square peg and a round hole energy that a lot of like starseed related and also old soul people feel. And if that's the case, then part of your life purpose, because of that connection to other people with the happiness and the joy, is to, instead of following those intellectual pursuits and seeing those perspectives of life in the very developed word, as I want to use, developed, in the very developed way that you do see life because of your soul's experience, instead of just hiding it away to yourself, it's to share it with other people, okay? And also I think too, I don't know if you tend to have a lot of friends that are very similar to you in this way. All right, sorry, we had a little bit of a jump cut there, pile number 3. If you heard that clicking just now, that was my camera's battery literally running out. What I was saying before my camera battery just decided to completely call it quits was, it was something about, I was saying, you are not just meant to like understand all of those things just in your own silo. You're also meant to, with your developed perspective, connect with other people in a way of, I think where I was going with it was something to do with not only other people that are also very intelligent, but also I think other people that are old souls, maybe even some other people that are like, say, starseeds, okay? That's kind of where I was going with that, was you finding people of kindred mind and soul and making them feel less alone. I think that's where a lot of the happiness and the joy comes in with this life purpose of yours as well. So not just like with your wit and your comedic timing and your way of making people happy through humor and things like that, but also making people happy in realizing that they're not alone in life, because I'm really drawn back to those dolphins here in the happiness card. Okay, so that's what I was saying before my camera decided the battery decided it was done, and then I had to recharge it. But that kind of was, I think, the last point I wanted to make with your true life purpose here, pile 3. But let me just make sure I look over your cards here, and I don't think I missed anything, but I just want to take one last glance, okay? And we did talk about like the change with the metamorphosis of adapting to the change of, you know, you being such an old soul, you know, and I think, like I said, a starseed and having to adapt to the change of being here. And I think that's also where you shine out your light, is helping other people adapt to change as well. I think too, even if you did struggle with change earlier on in life, it's like now you're really good about adapting to that change, because, you know, maybe it's even that you had a lot of turbulence in childhood too. Maybe that's kind of where like this negative father figure we talked about earlier popped in. Maybe that father figure had created a lot of turbulence in your life. And so it's like you struggled with feeling secure when you were younger. And maybe that's why you're really giving to pile number 3. You're giving because you like to help give people security. You like to be protective of people because that is something that perhaps you lacked when you were younger yourself. So you make people happy through that security and that joy as well, and help them feel happy even when times are changing and when they feel like things aren't constant. You're like a really good cornerstone, or a really good solid pillar of rock for people to stand on even in the most turbulent times of life, is another life purpose I'm hearing for you. Just kind of like that metaphor we talked about with like the lighthouse on the coast, like the Will-o-the-Wisp being like the light in the darkness for people. It's like you're not just a guiding waypoint, but you're also that solid stone of security to stand on for other people, okay? So, I mean, you really just kind of give off, like, sage, old, wise grandparent vibes, like I said earlier, out of, like, especially all the piles that I've had today. But it's not so much in the way of, like you're not stiff and you're not very formal about it. you're very approachable about it, and you're very relatable to other people as well. And I think that's why you connect with other people so well, and or that's part of this life purpose, is this connecting to other people in such a relatable way, because, you know, especially being an old soul pile 3, you've lived so many different lives that I think you can and are supposed to connect to so many different people, because you do understand life from that many different perspectives. Okay, that's maybe part of this change too with the metamorphosis. Maybe you kind of are a metamorphosis of a person in terms of your soul, having taken on so many identities that you know, kind of like how people work. Maybe that's part of your intelligence as well, pile 3, is you know how people work, you know what makes them, you know what makes their minds churn, you know, kind of like how their hearts work as well. And I think that is why you're such a wise person when it comes to helping uplift them out of times of sorrow and help uplift them out of feeling so alone. Okay, so keep being that pillar, pile number 3, please. Keep being that joyful point of light for other people. And keep being you. Keep being that old soul of yourself. Keep being the starseed. I'm pretty sure you are, right? For some reason, Arcturian is really popping forward, that particular type of starseed. So if you're familiar with starseed systems, etc., Arcturian is what I'm hearing. Or if you're not familiar, feel free to look it up. There's plenty of videos and guides out there to different types of starseeds. But that is what I'm hearing, is, you know, from Arcturus, right? Let's see, and I think that is it for you, my very, very smart pile number 3. So thank you for, staying with me through the weird little jump cut we had just there from the battery running out. And thank you so much for listening today. I hope that this life purpose reading helped you. Of course, most of all, that you liked it and it resonated with you. And if so, please like the video. Please comment down below what resonated with you, and your life story as well. I love hearing that too. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. That does just help the channel out a little bit, which helps me provide readings for both you and others in the future. And as we always say in our tradition, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, pile 3, and I hope to see you in the next reading. Bye, pile 3.